We have an F1 car, so that's very interesting. But the other question I wanted to ask was, how comfortable are you with AI on a scale from being very depressed and sad with the technology to loving it? So on a scale from 0 to 5, on 1 to 5, like how comfortable do you think you are? I'll just give folks a minute to punch in some answers so we can get a live poll of how everyone is feeling. So we just had a poll where we got an idea that everybody's interested in AI and looking forward to how it can be used. We have maybe 1 or 2 skeptics in the room, which is totally understandable. I guess I wanted to see another raise of hands. Can anyone give a definition of AI, or is anyone comfortable giving a definition of AI? Okay, so we have one person. Hopefully by the end of this presentation, everybody should be comfortable giving a definition of AI. So this will be running, and then we'll come back to this, I guess, towards the end, so we can do a bit of a before and after. I wanted to get started by introducing myself. Let me just click present, and we should be good to go. Okay. So my name's Uwais Iqbal. I'm not a legal professional. I don't have a legal background. I come from the technology world. So I've held roles as a machine learning engineer and AI practitioner at various legal tech startups, as well as Thomson Reuters. And I had the inspiration to set up my own consultancy offering AI services, but targeting the legal sector. So we work a lot with law firms and legal teams and adjudication services, thinking about what are the right ways to deliver AI into legal. So we do a lot of work around education, a lot of work around use case development, as well as implementation. So that's a bit about us. But for today, we've got a session which is usually an hour condensed into 20 minutes. So bear with me if I'm pacing along, but hopefully you can keep up with me. But the goal is to give you a broad perspective about AI, try and conceptually help you understand what the technology can do, unpack and demystify some buzzwords, and then take a look at the future of how AI is going to impact or is already impacting legal services. Everyone ready? Okay, great. Introducing AI. So if there's anything I've learned from my experience working with legal professionals and lawyers, is that they absolutely love definitions. So I think an important place to start is by giving a shared definition or a working definition that we can use for artificial intelligence. And we've all heard the term AI. We've maybe perhaps played with ChatGPT. We've experienced the technology firsthand. But conceptually, we still haven't done that work of understanding what this technology is and how it can work. So if we go back in time to the origins of the term artificial intelligence, it was actually defined by a chap named John McCarthy. He was a class fellow of the British codebreaker Alan Turing. And he introduced the term into the literature, into the research, and defined the field of artificial intelligence in computer science. He defined artificial intelligence as machines that can perform tasks that are characteristic of human intelligence. So what that means is, as humans, there are particular things we can do innately. We can read, we can communicate, we can identify objects, we can give meaning to sounds, etc. And now we want to go into this enterprise of trying to think about how we can get machines to do something similar. So we like to give this as a working definition for what we do at Simplexico and in the presentations we give. We can think of artificial intelligence as a technique that uses machines to replicate the problem-solving and decision-making capabilities of the human mind. So take a screenshot of that definition, etch it into your memory, tattoo it onto your skin, whatever works for you, but keep that in mind as we go through this presentation and as you interact with AI beyond this presentation. Again, it's this general idea that humans, we can solve problems, we can make decisions, we can do different cognitive functions and skills. And with AI, we want to try and see how we can get machines to do those same skills to varying degrees of performance and acceptability. So hopefully everybody now is comfortable. So if I ask you, are you able to define AI? You should be able to give a cogent definition. I'm not going to test you, but hopefully you should be able to now. And I wanted to break down the terms in particular. So the first term we have is artificial. And what artificial means is that this is pure mimicry and imitation. There's nothing beyond that. So you'll see lots of cartoons and graphics in this presentation, so bear with me. They're very useful at conveying the message. So we have Marge and Maggie. I'm hoping everybody's familiar with Marge and Maggie. So Marge, she's driving the car. She knows where she's going. She knows what she's doing, and she knows why she's driving the car to get to where she needs to get to. Whereas Maggie, on the other hand, she simply sees her mother and imitates the actions of her mother. Maggie doesn't have this higher level awareness of where she's going, why she's going, and the purpose of her journey and her transit. So again, Marge has this higher level context or awareness or cognition of what she wants to do, why she wants to achieve it. And Maggie within that is just copying or imitating a small fraction of that. So we can think of AI systems in a similar way, that humans, we have this larger level of context and awareness of what we want to do, why we want to do things, and what we want to achieve. And with AI systems, we're able to copy artifacts of that process. And the intelligence aspect of artificial intelligence is we want to focus on those capabilities which are uniquely human. So what are things that only humans can do, which we can now think about using machines instead? Again, another comic, bear with me. So this is, I think it's a panda, it's a rabbit, it's a hybrid between the two. It's a panda rabbit. I'm still not quite sure. He builds a robot, okay? And then he goes to this robot and he says, I want you to do a particular task or a particular skill. In this scenario, it's cleaning with a broom. Now, the panda rabbit, he teaches the robot this particular skill, and the panda rabbit goes on to do something a bit more enjoyable with their time. They read a book. And the robot sees some spare parts. So the robot gets clever and then decides to build another smaller robot and teach the smaller robot how to perform the same skill. So the last part is a bit futuristic, but the robot itself finds leisure while the smaller robot is actually doing the work. So I think in this example, there's something very interesting in terms of how we can think about AI. We like to break it down into two main areas. One is thinking about capturing expertise. What is the particular human problem-solving skill or decision-making skill that we're looking to replicate or leverage with AI? So in this scenario, what's the skill? Cleaning, right? And then the second aspect is how do we use and leverage machines to scale that expertise? So we can copy and replicate a machine very, very easily with the same skills. If we wanted to duplicate and replicate a human being, that's a very laborious process. You have to make a child, you have to teach that child has to grow, you have to give them skills and expertise over 20 to 30 years, and only then they're able to replicate that level of skill. And this is important, I guess, for the legal industry, because traditionally the bottleneck has always been the human being, that the skill resides within the head of a partner or somebody who's very experienced in the practice of law, which takes 10 to 20 to 30 years to get to. Now, with AI, if we're able to think in creative ways and look at what are the different aspects of law or legal services that we want to look to mimic and imitate, give that to machines and start scaling that process through the use of machines, then humans are no longer the bottleneck. So law becomes a very, very interesting endeavor to try and apply this technology to, because of that benefit of scale that we can get to. So we can see AI as this enterprise of capturing expertise and then looking to scale that expertise. When we speak about AI, usually this analogy is given that AI is the new electricity. And the reason that analogy is given is to highlight how AI will create change across society. Just like electricity completely transformed every level of society, AI will have a similar impact. And within the past year, we're beginning to see that impact taking place and unfolding, and even it's come to the legal industry. But there's this level of, when we speak about and think about electricity, there's usually these three levels of abstraction we think about. We have the fundamental technology. So this room, for example, is powered by electricity. It's almost assumed that every building you go into will have electricity. That's just part and parcel of our life. It's just, we live with the technology. And then on top of that technology, there are applications which make use of electricity. So we have electrical appliances. Can you point out any electrical appliances in this room? We have the lights, we have the monitor, we have the speakers, we have the clock, which is telling you to hurry up. So we have electrical appliances and we interact with them in different ways. And then above the electrical appliances, we can use appliances to do different things. For example, I have this computer in front of me, which is an electrical appliance. And I can use it to give a presentation. I can use it to search the web. I can use it to deliver legal services. There's a whole host of uses which are enabled through the application. So we can take this very natural mapping we have almost implicitly that we use when we think about electricity, and we can apply that same thinking to AI. So with this new wave of generative AI and large language models, that's the fundamental bedrock technology, which is powering lots and lots of different things. And then we have the application layer. So we have things like ChatGPT, we have things like Gemini, we have different applications that we can go to and use to do different things. And then we have different uses of those applications. So for example, I can go to ChatGPT, I can look at summarizing text, I can look at drafting emails, I can do various different things. But the lived experience we have with AI systems is only very new, maybe 12 months or so for the large population of humans. Whereas with electricity, everybody has a lived experience. So we know when we want to use a toaster. We know when we want to use a kettle, and we know when we want to use a microwave, right? And more importantly, we know when not to use a toaster, when not to use a kettle, and when not to use a microwave. So if you decided to wake up one morning and you wanted to make toast, and instead you used the kettle instead of the toaster, what would happen? You'd end up with soggy toast, right? But with that lived experience, we know we need to use a toaster to make toast rather than using a kettle. And part of the problem with AI being so new is we haven't developed that learned experience of what tools to use when. So when the chap who ended up on the front of the New York Times for the hallucinations in the case, in the airline case, he was effectively using a microwave to do all of his cooking, right? So sometimes, and with ChatGPT and with AI, with large language models, I think what we started to do is started to try and cook everything in the microwave instead of standing back and realizing, okay, maybe we don't need a microwave, we need an air fryer, or we need a fan oven or something of that nature. So this level of abstraction is important for the legal industry because a microwave is a general purpose consumer application. And if you're running a Michelin star kitchen, you're not going to be cooking all of your food in a microwave, right? And if you're delivering legal services, you're going to want to use specialized AI applications designed and purpose-built for the delivery of legal services, rather than trying to cook things in a microwave. So I think we need to think about the level of abstraction we have with these technologies and these applications, and we can use the existing understanding we have with electricity. So that's a bit of an overview of artificial intelligence. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to skip through this slightly, but I wanted to focus on specifically how we look at the future of AI in legal services. And we've been doing a lot of this work at Simplexico to try and demystify and simplify as much as possible the different application areas or the different ways in which this technology can be used in the legal industry. So going back to this broad definition where we can think about AI as mimicking human skill or human behavior when it comes to different aspects, what we've tried to do is we tried to map the types of things lawyers tend to do on a day-to-day basis, where we can now think about using artificial intelligence. Where are the opportunities where this technology can be used? And we've come up with what we call the legal AI actions. And these are effectively the tasks, the concrete tasks that lawyers tend to do on a day-to-day basis where this technology can now be used. So things like extracting information, things like labeling information, things like comparing information, comparing clauses within a contract, for example, organizing information, taking a dump from discovery and organizing those files, finding information, legal research, etc., drafting information and summarizing information. So generative AI has enabled drafting and summarization, but hopefully when you see this, you can take the conversation from this very broad and high level speaking about AI to actually think more concretely, what are the day-to-day things a lawyer does where you can now think about using this new technology. So hopefully this gives you a bit more of a concrete perspective of how this technology can be used. And another important question which comes up is what's important about generative AI? Is this not just another phase in the hype cycle, another step in the phase of technology being introduced to the legal industry? I think if we take this perspective of AI replicating what humans can do, generative AI is significant for the legal industry for a few reasons. So previously, prior to generative AI, the types of things AI was good at had a very, very small overlap with the types of things lawyers tended to do on a day-to-day basis. So AI could only do very basic things like extracting information and labeling information. Now with generative AI, there is this whole region of tasks and activities which lawyers do on a day-to-day basis, where now AI could be employed. So as we further step into the future, we'll see this region where there's overlap between being able to use a human and being able to use a machine. We'll see that region it will begin to be dominated by the use of technology through using technology in legal services. And then the types of things lawyers will focus on will more tend to be the higher level things which Marge has to do, right? So a lot of what Maggie does can be done by the machines, and a lot of the things that only Marge can do will be done by humans in the future. And I think we're starting to see the emergence of this within the legal industry with conversations that are unfolding. And I think it's an exciting time to think about what the future of legal services and AI looks like. Choices for the future. So I think this is very interesting. for us to be able to see what different jurisdictions are doing when it comes to AI in legal services. So in the Indian jurisdiction, for example, they've created an ecosystem bringing together participants from industry, from the legal profession, from academia, and from the startup world to create a hub of innovation looking at how AI can be used in the Indian justice system. We don't have something like this yet in the UK. I guess that's a question to folks in the audience. When are we going to have something similar like this in the UK that brings together these different aspects of technology, of legal services, and of innovation to think about how we can look to improve public services when it comes to the use of AI in law? So there's lots of things to look at, lots of things to think about. But I think there's three camps that are quite obvious that are emerging with the technology. The first camp, not necessarily these are the skeptics, but there are folks who are saying AI is just another wave, it will pass. So you can either sink your head in the ground and ignore completely the conversation. And there's a second camp which is emerging, is to jump aboard the hype train and accelerate with the hype and drive that technology based on hype and misinformation. And the third option, which is, I think, important for folks in this room to think about, is as members of the legal profession involved in the delivery of legal services, how can we think about engaging with technologists and engaging with the technology to drive a future with AI in legal services that is fair and responsible for everyone, okay? And I think that conversation is unfolding at this very present time. So it's important that folks in this room get engaged with these conversations and raise their voice and give their perspective to criticize these AI systems and to say we need a higher level of standard when it comes to this technology for it to be accessible and really drive value in the legal industry. Like microwaves aren't good enough. We need dedicated equipment for the legal industry, for example. And then that will only come about from folks in this room raising that conversation and creating those questions. So the question becomes, what AI future do we want for the legal industry? What conversations and choices do we need to make today to ensure a fair and confident AI future for legal services tomorrow? I wanted to leave you with this. So we're introducing a service called the Legal AI Clinic. As part of our work that we're doing to demystify AI in the legal industry, we've created a free monthly drop-in clinic where anybody can come with their questions about AI and have a conversation about AI. Whether that's to get clarity, whether that's to understand how these systems work, this is a free offer that we're opening up to the industry to help drive these conversations. That's up on the Simplexico website, and anybody can go and register for a session. So I'll stop there. And if anybody has any questions, I think we can take questions. We have some time for questions. But I'm quite active on social media, on LinkedIn, speaking about AI. And please feel free to connect and stay in touch. And this is also my email address if anybody is interested in speaking and thinking about these ideas. I'm always more than happy to chat. So I guess we can open up the floor to questions.
Uwais, thank you so very much. Thank you for sticking to time as well. Let's see, I can immediately see some hands. So let's just see any questions, thoughts, comments for Uwais. I'm particularly interested in hearing from people who maybe your before and after is quite different off the back of what you've heard. So maybe you started off thinking of AI as a risk, but maybe you think of it now as slightly more of an opportunity. Madge, let's take the microphone there. So let's hear from I think it was Claire, wasn't it? Jane, sorry.
Yeah.
Jane, do you want to just reintroduce yourself? Just
sorry. I'm Jane Robson. I'm the CEO of National.
And you were wearing a jacket now.
I'm wearing a jacket. So just to go with my stylish dress. Woolly thing. Anyway, so my question about this is really coming from what are the implications with this, with solicitors and other legal advisors with their PII? Because I mean, I know some PIIs that won't actually let you, they won't cover some advisors unless they meet them in person. Never mind use AI and things like this. So has that conversation been had with the legal services insurance providers?
Yeah, thank you for that, Jane. Can I just get a sense of any other hands? So we've got some hands over here. Uwais, let's hear from you. Then I want to bring Gabby in. Then if we could be ready, Gavin, to pass the microphone to this person here. Uwais, your response to that issue of the challenge of the insurance piece.
Yeah, so I think the conversation is still unfolding. I think we primarily work with law firms, and they have questions and queries around data security and data privacy. But I guess the question is, this technology hasn't been designed to deliver legal services and respect some of those, like the specifics of the legal industry, if that makes sense, of how communication happens and the privileges that are there between advisors and citizens. So I think the technology is there. Like, we have that technology layer. It's really good. We know what it can do. But I think at the application layer, we have to be a bit more, I think the word is involved in the discussions around how these solutions are designed, if that makes sense. So that we can mitigate those risks and we can deliver that technology in these different ways.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Jane. Gabby, we've got some questions online, I know.
We do. We've got lots of concerns around data security, really, limitations with client confidentiality. Somebody said the problem is in transparency, privacy, how to regulate ethical use, and the explanation of it all in a benefit for providers and users. Could we be putting lawyers in a place of unknown and unquantifiable risk? And secondly, another question on how do we monitor the algorithm bias in AI, and how can we have confidence in it in professional services?
Okay, that's a heavy question. I think there are ways this technology can be utilized where you're compliant against data privacy and those constraints. And then that requires a clever, a more involved understanding of where data is flowing, how data is being processed, who's storing data, and who's reusing data. And what's happened now is that last year we had the wave of consumer-facing AI applications with ChatGPT, and now this year we've got this wave of enterprise applications using large language models. So we have Microsoft Copilot, etc. And these new wave of enterprise solutions, they try and offer those guarantees around data privacy and things like that. But then also with the work we're doing with law firms and legal teams is, as long as they have a cloud environment or they have a space where data can be protected, then these models and technology can be brought inside their organizations so that they can leverage the benefits of this, as opposed to sending the data out to a third party. So I think the traditional approach with technology has been, if you want to do things, you have to send data across to a third party. But with AI and a lot of these concerns, we can bring the technology inside the organization so that we can maintain those obligations around data.
Thank you, Uwais. Let's go for the final comment from this person here.
Thank you for demystifying the AI. I'm standing up because perhaps I'm the smallest person in the room. Obviously, we have heard today and we have seen that the blind faith in computer systems created the situation of great injustice, which we all know today in the post office case. Should we rely again on another computer system like AI? This is the question number one. And the second part to it is, obviously, we talked about ethics and morality. AI does not have any consciousness. Therefore, you cannot expect this to have morality, sense of morality and ethics. The trajectory we see, I can see that you're very confident that it's going to take over a big chunk of our legal services we offer. Where do you see 10 years from now? Thank you.
Sure, that's a really good question. I guess the technology is so impressive that we try and give it a personality and we try and give it consciousness. But when you're using your sat-nav in your car, everybody knows that's not a moral system. Everybody knows that's not like truth with a capital T. It's just there to guide you and help you. And I think that we've mapped this out in terms of the work we've been doing. There are different ways humans can interact with machines. And one of the ways which gets conflated with AI is automation. So when people think about AI, they usually think about automation. And what automation usually means is that you completely remove the human and it's just the machine which does everything. And of course, in those scenarios where automation is there, that's where the risk and the questions arise from: how do we trust these systems? How do we make sure they're not biased, etc. But there are other ways of implementing AI systems. Like, for example, you can have an assistant, or you have your sat-nav, where you're still in control as Marge, doing what you need to do, but Maggie is just helping you do small bits so you can focus on the bigger picture. So I think there's more of a design conversation that needs to happen around how we design these systems, how do we design that human-machine interaction, which is important for the legal sector. I guess over the next 10 years, I think what we'll end up seeing is we'll see a lot of adoption of the technology, and sadly we'll see a lot of cases where people are burnt by the technology. So we have the post office case, we have the chap who ended up on the front of the New York Times. I think there'll be more and more stories about this. But I think what's important, that what we want to try and do is try and think about how can we educate the industry as much as possible about this new technology, because it's coming, it's here, it's going to happen sooner or later. And the more educated we are about how the technology works, the different ways we can have interactions with these systems, the higher standards we can have in terms of turning away the microwaves and focusing on the purpose-built industrial ovens, if that makes sense.
Uwais, thank you so very much for starting us off. I can't think of a more stimulating or thought-provoking discussion actually to have as we reflect on the future.